PowerBoat Television is brought to you by Yamaha, revs your heart. Ford F-Series, smart, tough, capable. And Cruisers Yachts, manufacturing world-class boats.
We're in Fond Du Lac, Wisconsin for an extraordinary behind-the-scenes tour of the primary Mercury production facility. We're going to see propellers being made. We're going to see engines being cast. There's a huge 4,500-ton press. Let's go take a peek.
We were invited to Fond du Lac because Mercury has invested significantly in this manufacturing facility to meet the demand of the consumer. Building the latest lightweight V6 and V8 outboard engines is no easy task, and it all starts with casting. Mercury is home to some of the most powerful die-cast presses in the world.
This is a die from that monstrous 4,500-ton press, and it's used for V6 and V8 outboards. And if you can believe it, there are more parts in that die than there are in the average powerhead. Now, the benefits of such high pressure is an incredibly dense and yet lightweight casting. And that is how Mercury gets these V6 and V8 outboards to be so light and yet maintain all that durability.
A die-cast machine is, in essence, a large hydraulic press. We scoop the molten aluminum up with a ladle, pour it in a large tube. A piston pushes that molten aluminum through the tube up between the two die halves. It holds it on pressure for a short amount of time. There's water lines that are plumbed inside the die. The water lines are activated, so it accelerates the cooling process. So molten aluminum goes from liquid state to a solid state in a matter of seconds. A robot goes in, grabs the casting, and basically it's ready for an exit conveyor.
Various component castings are formed using this same process. Once cool, unwanted elements from the molding process are cut away, collected, and recycled. Having the foundry on site allows the scraps to get reduced back to molten aluminum. There is virtually no waste during this process.
We're one of the lucky people in the industry where we have a foundry on site in the United States that's 100% clean. We control the quality of the metal. We want to make sure it's the right content, it's going to hold up for corrosion. If an outboard engine has 1,000 pieces, for an example, 687 of those pieces are built in-house.
Special steel cylinder sleeves are pressed into the newly formed blocks.
We've brought a lot more robotics in that help control the quality. It makes it easy for the associate to assemble the engine. We're bringing in more Mazak cutters, and that's the actual tool where the actual component goes in and we do the machining on. We're close to almost 300 of these cutters. They're going to work around the clock to increase capacity. But going robotics, what we're doing is kind of more like we cut the part, then we check it. Let's just say that position took 20 people. Now it only takes 3. Now we can move those people back on the line to help with assembly or other sections.
Mercury has an incredibly sophisticated corrosion protection system. And for most of the outboards, it's a 2-part process that starts with what they call chrome conversion. And after, it goes through an EDP process, which is electro-deposition painting. It's a really sophisticated version of powder coating. And about 85% of all outboard parts go through this 2-step process. A secondary benefit of this EDP process is that the paint's not used. The stuff that's in the air that doesn't get applied can be reused. Unlike a liquid system, once you spray it, it's basically junk. And they actually go through this system 3 times for the maximum finish durability and UV protection.
After a variety of treatments, the engine blocks and other components head towards assembly.
Since 2008, we've invested over $1.1 billion in our manufacturing footprint. That's really been driven by amazing investment in our products And clearly, to make those kind of products, we need to invest in how we manufacture them. We have many, many more women working today in the plant than we used to, and part of that's been enabled by the systems we've put in. Heavy engines are hard to move from station to station, so we have a lot of aided lifting and maneuvering of those engines, which enable a much broader workforce to be able to safely work in our plant. The employee engagement we have across Mercury is amazing. We couldn't do what we do without every single employee in this building. It's really our intention to define the industry, and that's part of the benefit we get now being 100% marine focused.
After the assembly process, every engine is run through what's called a hot test to ensure everything is functioning as it should.
Our design of our hot test is unique to our product. So we're looking at making sure that we understand the braking of the engine, what's the RPMs we need to run that engine to verify the oil pressure, temperatures, making sure the electrical system works correctly inside that engine before we pass it on to the customer. So the engine, when it comes in the hot test tank, is going to lower down into a tank of water, just like it's sitting in the lake to run the engine. We're hooking everything onto it from a throttle control, fuel itself to run through the engine, looking for water pickup, water pressure, oil temperature. There's a hood that comes down. It's a very visual management system, so the operator's got a recipe that they do not touch. It automatically runs based on that model that's coming in there, runs through the test. After it finishes the test, the hood itself will turn a green color, let them know that it's passed the test, it's a good engine going out to the customer. It'll turn red if there's a defect in that engine, make sure it cannot go out to the customer, and it stops that engine from going through the final operations. It'll send it into a repair bay.
Countless hours of research and design go into each and every engine. Later in the show, we see just how far Mercury has gone to make their engines as quiet as possible. We will also see what steps are involved in manufacturing propellers.
It really does feel solid for an aluminum boat.
Yeah.
With some early Quebec fall smoke on the water, we got out at the crack of dawn, in part to get an early start at the fish, but mostly because how cool do boats look in the morning mist.
So you come here often? We're out here on Lac William. Got my friend Gary Welch here, who brought me out of bed early this morning to see if I could show him a thing or two about fishing. Gary, great to see you.
Pleasure.
And Gary's showing us around this brand new 2020 Holiday 162 DLX fishing boat with the tournament fishing team package. Gary, what do you think about this boat?
Well, I think it's an awesome package for anybody to buy, whether you're a fisherman, an avid fisherman. I mean, it's within range of pretty well anybody's budget. It's a fine fishing boat. It handles well. I love it.
We haven't had much luck so far this morning, but do you think we can figure it out with a boat like this?
We should, but there's no guarantee.
I like the confidence,
Hey,
Gary.
look, we're overfished right now.
Let's get these rods out here then. What are we waiting for?
At just 16 feet long and 85 inches wide, Princecraft has packed the Holiday 162 DLX full of awesome features. Lucky for a guy like me, who's about as useful as a screen door on a submarine with a rod in my hand.
You feeling stable up there, Gary?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm all comfy. You?
For a 16-foot boat that we can both stand and cast off the same side, you gotta love it.
Good, eh?
And that starts with an impressive amount of storage from bow to stern to bring everything you need for a full day out on the water. Mesh nets for tackle boxes under both consoles, a 7-foot locker on the starboard side that'll fit 4 rods easily, with easy access storage on top, and a wicked convertible aft casting platform.
Fold down the seats right here, and there you go. You got yourself a sort of
Beauty.
a bass boat platform.
Yeah, big, huge platform.
Okay. You have the compartment here for the battery, and they have a master switch. So you can just close a master switch here and you shut everything off.
And that's nice and convenient right there with the battery.
This seat here is exactly the same seat I have in my Hudson. Just fold it down like this and sit right on top of it.
Just like a
It's
saddle.
like a saddle.
There you go, yeah, cool.
Yeah. The dashboard here, they made it narrower and lower because most electronics now they're getting
Bigger and bigger.
You know how it is, eh? So we have the live well here, which we might use if we get lucky.
If we get lucky.
If we get lucky. Also included with the TFT package comes these nets here, which are real handy. We have another battery storage compartment right here in the front. And you can always store some stuff inside there.
Oh, they do a great job with storage on this.
I put all my paperwork in there.
That's perfect, and you know exactly where it is.
Exactly.
Problem with having the TFT package, the fishing package, everything that we have is that we're kind of running out of excuses for why we can't pull a fish out of it.
We'll have to think something up.
All right, I'm sure we can come up with something.
So why don't we go give this thing a whirl and
Let's do it.
let's do it. The whole shot's good though.
That is good.
The 75 horsepower Merc that comes standard is cost effective and plenty powerful to get you from spot to spot in a hurry. We hit a top speed of just under 42 miles per hour.
You know what I like about these boats for real? They run like a cruiser.
Oh, yeah.
Look at this, eh?
It really does feel solid for an aluminum boat.
Yeah. Here, Drew.
All right, thank you, sir.
Let it go all the way down and just keep on jigging. We're on fish.
A lot of pressure here, Gary.
Yeah, monkey's on your back, boy.
Well, even with all the features in this holiday, we just couldn't seem to find the fish. Tough to blame the boat, though.
You know what, Drew? You're not much of a fisherman. So why don't we go right around the boat, eh?
All right, I'm not sure if I should be insulted or not, but I would like to catch a fish, so I'll follow your lead this time.
Oh, God. 3,500 RPM.
Yeah, this is great. We could be out here all day.
It's like we're cruising.
Yeah.
Comfortable seats. I like the windshield, you know, it keeps your hat on your head.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I mean, it's getting into a colder season. I think you could fish pretty well right till the snow. There's a lot of protection here.
The Holiday 162 DLX should check just about every box for anyone looking for an affordable, family-friendly fishing boat that's easy to drive and even easier to trailer.
A solid boat, dynamite good looks. I mean, these things really look good
Oh,
in
yeah.
the water,
Oh, I
right?
thought you were talking about me.
No, sorry about that.
We're going to install a sun power solar kit and try to find out just how long you can go without running the Jenny. With prices coming down, now is a great time to consider solar power for your boat. And why not? Who wants to constantly run the generator? Today, on my boat, with a little help from Pat Tossi at Suntech, we're going to install a sun power solar kit and try to find out just how long you can go without running the Jenny. Before we go shopping, there are a few things to consider.
Number one, determine how much energy your boat draws. Number two would be the size of battery capacity that you need. And number three is the area for your solar that you require. Location is important because you want to try and hit the highest point of the roof. So typically that's going to be your bimini or some type of hardtop or Dodger.
What's the average 30-foot boat need roughly in wattage in solar?
The average 30-foot boat in solar requires about 300 to possibly 350 watts of power.
What's the cost for a complete system to start?
You're looking at about, for 300 watts, about $1,200.
The best place to start is with an energy calculation. How much power does your boat consume? The answer will drive both the battery bank and solar panel requirements. To estimate your average daily power requirements, simply add up the loads and duty cycle of everything that draws power from your 12-volt system. Combining the lights, fridge, water pump, a few cell phones, tablets, and fans, we arrive at about 96 amp hours per day. If we can generate more solar energy than the boat consumes, we may never need to run the generator to charge the batteries.
So how much solar do we need to stay ahead of the 96 amp hours this boat's consuming?
Well, by my calculations, you're going to be looking at around 300 to 350 watts.
Now that we know how much solar we need to keep up with energy demand, we check the battery age and capacity. For lead banks, recommended total capacity should be 3 to 4 times the daily load, which in this case would be 360 to 480 amp hours. This boat has 6 deep cycle 6-volt batteries for a total capacity of 690 amp hours, and they're only 1 year old. Next, we check the bimini to see just how many panels will fit. We don't have room for 310s, but we can butt 2 50-watt panels next to a pair of 110s for a total of 320 watts.
If you're doing it yourself, you should know that running the wire probably takes the most amount of time. You do have to get 2 10-gauge wires from the engine bay at the battery bank all the way up to the top of the bimini. And it's not a bad idea to leave them loose and not zip tie them right away.
You've got to pull out enough to get to the panels on top of the bimini. Now, one little pro tip, it's not a bad idea to mark one of the wires on both ends with something. Yellow tape, white tape, red tape, doesn't matter, just to identify which one's which. So when you plug them in, you get the polarity right the first time. The charge controller is the brains of the operation, regulating the power from the solar panels to the batteries. It manages incoming voltage and regulates output to the batteries while preventing overcharging. Make sure you leave the breaker open until the system is completely installed and ready to turn on. Mounting a panel above a bimini can be tricky if you're not sewing Velcro in or finding a way to put grommets in. How do you do it without taking the canvas down?
These are rare earth magnets, and they're 1 inch in diameter. And they have up to 56 pounds of holding force. At 6 mounting locations, that's over 300 pounds of holding force per panel.
With the bimini in place, we laid out the panels and snapped the washers to the magnets in about 10 minutes. Before making the final connections, Pat recommends covering the panels to avoid any arcing. With the panels connected, we can now flip the breaker and start producing power. If you do opt for the Victron controller, you can download their app to your smartphone. It connects via Bluetooth to provide real-time charging information, battery voltage, and will even store up to 30 days of history. This makes it easy to know if your panels are keeping up with your energy demands and whether or not you should spark up the Jenny for a bit. We found we could actually go for 5 days without running the generator at all. It's hard to believe we will run out of fresh water before we run out of power. 320 watts of completely silent power, generating 6 amps of current at about 5 p.m. on a cloudy day. I can't wait for the sun to come out. Pat?
Great work.
Thanks a lot, man.
No worries.
On this week's Tow Tip, we're doing a quick circle check of our truck and trailer because the last thing we want to do when we're pulling it to drop it in the lake is drop it on the highway instead.
Now, if you're driving a new Ford F-150, you've actually got a handy checklist right in front of your eyes. But if not, here's what you'll want to double check before heading out.
Starting back here at the tongue, first thing we're going to do is make sure our lights are plugged in properly. Next, we're going to take a look at our hitch ball. We want to make sure we have the right size hitch ball, that the latch is firmly in place and the safety pin is right through there holding it down. Next thing we want to check are our chains to make sure they are hooked on, and we also want to make sure they're crisscrossed. That way, if the trailer does pop off the ball for some reason, they'll catch the tongue to prevent it from digging into the pavement. Coming up to the bow, we want to give our winch strap a double check to make sure that it's on secure and that our safety chain is hooked on as well. Inside the boat, make sure that any life jackets, equipment, anything that could blow off is securely placed inside compartments. If you do have any heavy equipment, you want to put it right over the axle of the boat.
If there isn't enough tongue weight, or if the overall weight is too far back, the trailer might sway. If it's too far forward, you could be overloading the rear springs on your tow vehicle. Ideal tongue weight is 10 to 15% of the combined mass of the boat and trailer. Without a scale, it can be tricky to know how much tongue weight you have, so I always make sure the back of the truck drops a few inches and has the same or even less space below the wheel arch as the front. Also, make sure your tires are filled. Now onto the back. First, check the safety straps to make sure they're tight and secure and not wrapped around something fragile like a trim tab or a cylinder. And then check all your lights, brake lights, tail lights, running lights, and signals to make sure they're all working properly.
The last thing I'm going to do before I take off is switch my lights from auto to manual. That way I can keep an eye on the pilot light on the trailer and know that if it's on, my lights are working. And that way, I'm confident that I'm getting to my destination safely with my boat still attached.
Hey, has anyone seen my sandals?
So the prop's upside down, wax drains out, and then you have a shell ready to receive 3,000 degree stainless steel.
Back in Fond Du Lac, Wisconsin at Mercury Manufacturing, hours of R&D go into making a marine engine. But one element you might not think gets much attention is noise, vibration, and harshness, also known as NVH. During the recent plant expansion, Mercury developed a building entirely dedicated to measuring NVH in their engines. And this is the hemi-anechoic chamber, really the heart of the NVH facility. Here, you can mount an outboard or a stern drive engine up to 500 horsepower. And if you've heard just how quiet those new V6 and V8 engines are, the start of it all is right here.
We're constantly trying to go after the best data we can. And the only way to do that is eliminate all those external influences. We partnered with a great engineering firm, and they helped us through this process. It's actually 2 buildings within a building when you look at the 2 chambers. The chambers themselves are constructed to eliminate a lot of ground-borne vibration. The tank in the ground holds about 66,000 gallons of water. The concrete floor in the building built on top of the floor is actually floating on 42 springs. When we were in the midst of developing one of our outboards, our product engineers, because of the quietness of the room, actually heard a whistle. Probably not something you generally hear at the dock. It took us a while to figure out what it was, but it turned out that it was actually the wind from the flywheel creating a vortice across the crank position sensor. And we actually redesigned the shape of the crank position sensor so that it eliminates that whistle. It is a unique tool set for us, and in order for us to maintain our advantage in the NVH side of the business, we feel it's necessary to continue that investment, and we're happy to see that they support that idea.
Next on tour was the Mercury Propeller Factory. They are so good at what they do that they not only manufacture propellers for Mercury outboard and inboard-outboard engines, they also make propellers for other leading engine manufacturers as well.
Market share for stainless steel propellers worldwide, Mercury is a dominant player in the outboard and stern drive marketplace with class-leading market share for our products, which is really driven by, number one, the fantastic engine products. We get to benefit from that. But we also benefit from the performance that we bring to the table, such that our products not only used on Mercury products, but for customers who run competitive product from Yamaha, BRP, Suzuki, know that if they want to get the best performance out of their boat, they run a Mercury propeller on their boat.
So what we're talking about today is called investment casting, also referred to as lost wax casting. We actually start with a tool. 140-degree molten wax is actually injected into that die to create a wax copy of the propeller. And then the product goes through a series of sequential dips. Then we invest a shell around the wax pattern. The first dip is called a prime dip with a very fine-grained sand because you want the very smooth surface finish. Subsequent dips is a more coarse sand because those are all about strength. Has to go through a 24-hour dry period. Then the propeller is de-waxed, so the prop's upside down, wax drains out, and then you have a shell ready to receive 3,000-degree stainless steel. And what you get then is a casting that looks something like this in the raw state. And then it goes through a 2-stage blasting process, one to blast out the interior of the propeller, and the other to blast the oxides off of the surface of the prop. You get a surface finish that looks like this. Next step then is a machining operation on what's called the labyrinth seal. That area is machined because you want a precise interface with the engine so that it keeps exhaust gas traveling through the hub just like you want it. Then from there, the propeller gets a full grind. And then the last step is what we call media finish or drag finish. And then from there, prop gets washed, gets inspected for any last defects. Finally, it'll get mated with a hub kit, put in the box.
There you have it. Bravo 1 has been fully polished.
While our tour of the facilities was coming to an end, several things were made perfectly clear. Mercury has listened to their engines, literally, and they've expanded their facilities to meet market demand. Making their own components puts them in the driver's seat of their production both now and into the future.